Folks, it's me, Denny Carter. Welcome to yet another episode of the Dad Season Show. This one is called episode 10. And today, eventually, we're going to talk about one weird trick for achieving work-life balance. It's one weird trick that has worked for me, is what I should say. But you know what? That didn't really fit in the title. I ran out of character space. So I just had to go with one weird trick to achieve work-life balance. I think this is an issue that folks struggle with, especially in the age of working from home, as if that it will it will never change. We will eventually all work from home one day, despite employers complaining about it. There is no stopping it. And it actually makes it much harder. And we'll get into that in a minute. I've worked from home since 2014. So for a long time now, that's 35 years. If I did the math, it's 37. A long time. As long as I've had kids, is what I'm saying. I've worked from home. So we'll get into that in a moment. I wanted to, of course, start out the show as I always do, and as I'm obligated to do under federal law, which is to say, join my Patreon. There's a Dad Season Show Patreon, and I need you to join it. And you can support the show that way as I work to get ads on this thing or whatever else you need to do to monetize these things. Until then, I'd appreciate the support. If you're getting anything out of it, you can find the show on iTunes. You can find it on Spotify. Of course, on YouTube. I'm also streaming this show on the platform formerly known as Twitter, now called X. My Roto World co-host Pat Doherty loves when I call it X. He refuses to believe that people call it X. I don't really know why anybody wouldn't. That's what it's going to be called literally forever. If I'm still posting in like 80 years, it'll still be called X, and it'll still be owned by the current owner. There's just no two ways about that. All right, folks. So join the Patreon. If you could like and or subscribe to the show on YouTube, that would be really helpful. Look, I'm feeding the content machine. The machine says it's hungry. The machine can never be satiated, is what it's told me. So I'm feeding it, and it says the more likes that I get on these videos, the kinder the algorithm will be to me. So your like, just a little jab on the like button would be greatly appreciated, so that the machine is therefore nice to me. We're all just trying to get on the right side of the machine these days. Is that not right? So obviously throw in your comments, your questions, anything related to work-life balance, any struggles that you've had. You can comment. Anybody can comment on YouTube. I don't think you can comment on the X platform, formerly known as Twitter, but you can do that on YouTube. We can get a conversation going. So I fancy myself something of an expert on work-life balance and or grind culture, because in 2016, I wrote a book. This was the book. Many of you may remember it, called 96 Ways to Rise and Grind. All right. And many have called it the greatest coffee table book of a generation. Others have called it the greatest book of a generation. I'm humble. I'm just telling you what has been said about 96 Ways to Rise and Grind. And people say, why 96? And I say, you'll never know. It has to do with editing is the issue. Started as 100. We had to get it to 96. So there you go. You know the secret now. You can buy it on Amazon. You can buy it wherever books are sold. You can also, some people wanted me to sign it for whatever reason. If you want to do that, you can get in touch with me in my DMs. I'd be more than happy to do that. I have a bunch of copies, folks, because let me tell you, despite it being called the greatest coffee table book of a generation, it wasn't sold like that. It didn't sell quite like that. So we're up to our eyeballs in copies of 96 Ways to Rise and Grind. Oh yeah, hey, look, Bob Harris, my guy, says this book, 96 Ways to Rise and Grind, sits on his nightstand And that makes me very happy, Bob, that that you would think so much of the book. So anyway, you can check out the book, whatever. So I started doing these series of Twitter posts. I'm calling it Twitter because back then it was called Twitter. In like 2013, where it was my rise and grind post. It eventually became a series of calendars, believe it or not. I was a calendar salesman. Folks would remember this. I became a calendar salesman every November and December for like 4 years. And basically it would be, rise and fill in the blank and grind. Okay. So like rise and stare at a screen for 12 hours and pretend you're living, and grind. That sort of thing. Uplifting. It was a very uplifting message. All, my parents and my wife loved this book. Here's one. Well, here, let's go to a different one. Rise, daydream about the oligarchs watching their gated communities burn in righteous flames of glory. Go to work and grind. That's one. Let's see. Rise and decide today is the day you'll take up smoking because Uncle Jeff's tracheotomy didn't seem all that awful, and grind. So things like that, you can check it out in this book. I wanted to start real quick before I get into your comments here. I'm going to read the class a little excerpt from the foreword in 96 Ways to Rise and Grind. And honestly, if I had to do it over again, folks, I would have made the foreword a lot longer. It's like 7 or 8 pages. I probably would have made it like 50 pages. My short attention span comes back to haunt me once again. I think I sat down one day and pumped out like 4,500 words and said, all right, that's good for a forward. Should have done more. Should have written many, many more words. Anyway, all right. So we must grind, then publicize the grind. The rising part of the two-step process has remained the same, for one must rise before one does anything. It's noteworthy, disconcerting, I'd argue, that the latter step has changed, morphing into something implying drudgery, some sort of undesirable, irrepressible, desperate effort. No longer do we shine when we awake, arms stretched overhead, brains slowly coming into focus for a new day. Now we grind, we work, we sweat, we strive, we move, we push, we do, we will ourselves, we grind. Drudgery has become sport in this grind-centric culture, a badge of honor we wear with puffed chests. We brag about working long, exhausting hours. We take pride in our lack of sleep. That's true. Our refusal to listen to our bodies and rest. We don't dare imply that we have time to relax, to do nothing to offset the effects of the grind. We must at all costs convince people that we grind and grind and grind because there's dignity in grinding. What were we created to do if not to grind? God made grinders, and they were good. So it goes on from there. And yeah, I mean, whatever stage of capitalism we're in, there's a lot of grinding going on, way more than there once was. And I really, before I get into this, I don't want to say that hard work is bad. That's not what I'm implying at all. I think, my employers over the years, my coworkers would describe me as someone who cares about my work, and I have put a lot of effort into working, especially writing, and more recently podcasting. So I'm not averse to hard work. I like it. I like engaging in it. It's stimulating. It can be very fulfilling if you're doing something that you enjoy. So this is not to say that we all, nobody should be working. Work is so 20th century. We got to get past working. Stop trying. Only nerds try. Only losers try. And that's not what I'm saying. But obviously there's a balance. We want to strike between work and life. And notice that work is not grouped into life. That is one curious thing. We'll talk about that in a few minutes. So I'm not telling you, I'm not sitting here saying Listen, folks, if you're working hard, you're doing it wrong. You got to stop working hard. I spoke this morning with my Living the Stream co-host, JJ Zacharyson, and he actually had a really good idea for this show. And I thank you, JJ, because he said the key to engaging in hard work but not working all the time is really finding time to work, squaring away a time, and really focusing, really buckling down, which is hard. I mean, it's hard for me. I find it very difficult to buckle down and do real work for a significant amount of time because I have 27 tabs open. I'm getting text messaged by everybody in my life. Okay. If you're watching, you text me, don't stop texting me. I'm just saying this is my fault. I don't have to check. Okay. But I do. I'm getting texts. My mind wanders. I'll check DraftKings for a second. See how my golf lineups are doing. Just for a second, that turns into 14 minutes. Okay. That I'm not writing. So that, it is something that is hard to do. But as JJ was telling me this morning, if you can actually square away a small period of time and do nothing but work, you can achieve things, you can accomplish things, you can be proud of yourself for the work that you've done without overworking, right? Without going overboard, without bringing work into your home life, which is what we're trying to avoid here. At least that's my hope here. And you can hear Ziggy. Yeah, Ziggy the dog. He's upset. I think there's a dog outside. Sorry. I wish Ziggy was in here so I could talk. So he could talk to you about work-life balance. He doesn't. No. You want to talk about a dog who needs to get his grind on? That dog doesn't grind at all. Nothing. He doesn't do anything. He just sits there like a lump all day, and I have to drag him out for a walk. He's 3.5 years old. He's not even an old dog. He acts like an old dog. He's a bad boy. I'm kidding. He's a good boy. He's the best boy. If you call him a bad boy, we're gonna have issues. We're gonna throw down. We're not, but I would be upset. I would cry. Don't call him a bad boy. We're gonna get to your comments here before we get into the meat of the show. I said it. We're gonna get into the meat of the show, not the heart of the show, the meat. All right. Oh, here you go, Tyler. Hey, Tyler. The good old days of Twitter, you'd wake up and read a grind post. Yeah. So I used to do this every morning. I used to get up really early, not to do this, but for my job at the time. And I would post a rise and grind tweet and got a lot of engagement. So obviously the dopamine hit and I said, I got to do this again because I like that dopamine. I like that attention. People seem to like it. We're going to do it again and again and again and again. If you type in CD Carter 13 and Rise and Grind, you will find approximately 7,000 posts about rising and grinding. Diego is recalling the Rise and Grind posts. I love the really long ones because it really drove home the eternal nature of the grind. Yeah, I mean, because everything can be like transmuted into work, right? And I'm guilty of this too. Like with golf, right? Like when I make golf a part-time job where I'm going to the range and I'm beating myself up about not hitting the ball straight or not hitting it flush, or I practice. Oh, Ziggy, you're killing me. Or I'm on the putting green and I miss a couple 5-footers in a row, and I'm kicking myself. Why? Why? It's not a job. What am I so worked up? I'm supposed to be having a good time, but I make everything a job. So I'm grinding on the practice putting greens on a Saturday morning or whatever, as if it is my job. So it sneaks. It can if you let that grind set. This is what the kids are calling it, the grind set. Maybe not kids. They're probably my age, but the millennials are calling it the grind set. If you can let the grind set sneak into basically every aspect of your life if you're not careful. Whew. Okay. Oh yeah. Hey, Bandit says you need to channel Pat and go masterpiece mode for the 50-page forward in the second edition. Yeah, so Pat Doherty, when he sits and writes, brother. I mean, he puts a lot of work into it, and I could do that. You're right. All right, what else do we have here? Toronto Dave back in the comments. For me, I try to take advantage of those moments where I feel motivated. Hard to force myself otherwise. Let those moments come and jump on it. Let myself rest when I can. Yeah, that that's good. And it really, like, you have to. I think you have to know yourself pretty well to know how you can work hard, work diligently in a short period of time, and not drag it into your home life. I used to be really into Stephen King like 15 years ago, and I read his memoir, and he's a guy who is very regimented in his writing, and a prolific writer. I mean, the guy writes like a 1,200 page book every oh, stop it, a 1,200 page book every year. So but he sets aside a time to go write. So he doesn't wait for the feeling to strike him. He has a time to go into an office and to write for that period of time, and then he leaves, and he says he does not write after that. He doesn't go back at night and write until 4 a.m, at least not anymore. I think he probably used to do that when he was young and using various substances, but he doesn't anymore. Whereas other writers, the guy who wrote wait, what's his name, R George Martin. George Martin says that he writes when he wants to. And he's never had a set time. He's never been regimented. He said, oh, the feeling has struck me to write right now. I'm going to go write. And therefore you have the Game of Thrones never being finished. And therefore we have the worst ending to any show in history. So thanks, George Martin, for that. I wish you had been a little more regimented in your writing, in your profession, and taken it a little more seriously. That would have been great for all of us, instead of having to suffer through several seasons off book of Game of Thrones, the worst show of all time, besides Breaking Bad, naturally. All right, maybe one more comment. Bandits back in the mentions. That Reese Witherspoon comment about artificial intelligence was such a bleak snapshot of the grind set. Quote, AI is not coming for your job. People who know how to use AI are coming for your job. So learn about it. Woof. Good grief, Reese. I didn't see that. Holy smokes, folks. That is bleak. Oh man, I guess she's probably being paid like literally millions of dollars to talk up AI, which of course is a scam and a phase and will be gone soon. But that is, oh man, yeah, people who know how to use. So yeah, everybody should learn how to use AI. That's the same thing. Learn to code. Everybody should just learn to code and you'll be fine. They used to be an insult. Learn to code. God, I'd rather die. That's what I'd rather do. I'm kidding, but sort of, only a little bit. Yeah, right. Matt's in the mentions, infuriating the folks on this, my Monday. Yeah, that was an infuriating comment from Reese Witherspoon. We thank Reese for making us all very upset on a nice Monday, on a nice sunny Monday. All right, so I wanted to start with a little like illustration of how pervasive I think grind culture has become, and how it has changed the way that we think of the work-life balance. And by change the way we think, what I mean is, like, it has decimated any barrier between work and life. There is no barrier. Work has eaten life for many people. The worst commercial I ever heard was in the radio. I was on the radio last year, maybe 2 years ago. It was a young guy talking, very upbeat young guy talking about how he loved to go to McDonald's in the morning. But this wasn't just getting McDonald's in the morning to go to your job, your day job only. This was a guy who loved to clock out as an Uber driver after driving all night and into the wee hours in the morning, and then go get some McDonald's and then go to his day job. And in the commercial, this is presented as a very positive development, as a way to say, you know what, you can still take care of yourself. You can still give your body the necessary nutrients, even while you work literally 24 hours a day. You can still eat. You can find 5 minutes to go to McDonald's and to eat some food between jobs, not job, but jobs. I was so depressed after hearing this commercial. I heard it many times. I probably heard it 15 times on the radio. And I thought, this commercial would have had no audience 15 years ago. None. Even maybe 10, probably 15, definitely 20 years ago in the early 2000s. If someone were to be like listening to the radio and say, wait, so this guy gets food between jobs. He doesn't sleep. He works all night doing a second job. And this is supposed to be what? Inspirational? Aspirational? That's gross, man. That's not good. And I'm not blaming the person at all. Okay. Like, I know that this was a commercial, is obviously fictional in that way. But I'm not blaming a person who feels that they need to work all day, every day, because maybe that's the only way to make rent. You know, I'm not disparaging the person at all. I'm disparaging the culture and the system that has made that a necessity for many, and also has encouraged the honestly unhealthy behavior of working nonstop, of having multiple jobs in the same day. I mean, honestly, like I know there's that funny grind set video that I see on X sometimes, where the guy goes, "I'm not crazy. You're crazy for thinking a day is 24 hours. I have 3 days every day, from 6 a.m. to noon, from noon to 6, and from 6 to midnight. And this is and so you worked one day, I worked 3 days. Over 5 days, what does he say? Over 5 days, I'm kicking your butt. Over the course of a lifetime, I forget the rest of it. But anyway, this guy's going insane. He says a day's not 24 hours. That's something a guy in a cave 300 years ago thought. My guy, you need to read a book. You need to read just one, any book. You go to the library and you just pick one book out of the shelf. It could be from the children's section, any book. And then you'll instantly know that people didn't live in caves 300 years ago. Instantly. Read one book. I'm begging grind culture people to read. You don't know anything. You're just like profoundly ignorant. But you're selling yourself as you know it all. You know it all. A guy in a cave 300 years ago. What is wrong with you? Come on. I'm begging people just to read a little bit. I mean, read books, man. Read some books. I saw Keith Law, the baseball writer, the baseball analytics thought leader. He has this interaction online with, of course, a Zoomer. No offense to the Zoomers, but come on, you guys. And no Zoomer's ever read a book. And he says something about a stat. The Zoomer says, "Oh, he disagrees with him on the baseball stat." He says, "Brother, I've written the book on this stat. You should read it." And the Zoomer says, "I ain't reading all that." And that pretty much wraps it up. That wraps it up for the culture, right? Is like, I know that the knowledge is out there. I am not going to seek it. And I literally will never read one page of one book. That's the total mindset, the cultural mindset that we have at the moment. There will be no reading. There'll be no learning. None. We're the internet was supposed to make us smarter. It's made us profoundly dumber in a way that threatens civilization. We, like, as a species, we are under threat because we are dumber than ever. Read a book, man. Holy God. Okay. What was I saying? So yeah, that commercial irked me big time. I work at home, and I have worked at home since, like I said, since 2014 in different capacities. And so separating work life from home life is difficult. Is difficult because I have a home office. I'm in it right now, if you can't tell. I'm in my home office. This is a spot where I go to work. And the temptation to come down here, this is on the bottom level of the house, to come down here and just sit down behind my computer and do some work, whatever it is sometimes overwhelming. That temptation, and it could be maybe the kids are playing outside, and my wife's doing something, and I say, okay, well, it can't hurt, right? It can't hurt if I just come down here and uh and do 15 minutes of work, and then that turns into 45 minutes of work, and then people are wondering, where am I? Where's Dad? And I'm in that way, I believe I'm setting a bad example for my kids, because the last thing I want to do as a dad is to offer an example to my kids of someone who never stops working. I very much don't want them to grow up thinking that that's just how things are. You grow up, you reach a certain threshold of maturity or age or whatever, and then you just work and work and work until you die. I I don't want to do that. But I have shown them that example many times, and it is most prominently, I think, with my phone, because the phone is now tethered to your work, and there's no way around it. There's simply, that's just reality for people, and including myself, where your phone is closely linked to your work. And so 15 years ago, my only texts were from friends texting me about dumb movie quotes or something. And now almost all my texts are work related. And that's just the way it is. I'm sure I'm not alone. I would imagine that folks in the comments, folks watching, listening, however you're consuming this podcast, I would imagine that you could relate and say, yeah, I mean, I get blown up for work purposes with text messages. And so when you're with your kid and you're playing a board game or something, and your phone's going berserk and it's work related, if you really have to address the issue, my suggestion, what I've done is you just be honest. You be upfront with the kid and you say, "I'm sorry, honey. I'm getting some work messages. I need to address this, and then we can continue playing." Don't try to like do it on the sly, right? Don't try to like take your phone out and like put it like away from the kid and like try to punch out a message to your coworker or your boss or whoever. Like that, I think that that's probably the worst option that you have. The second best option is being upfront. I have to answer this right now, and then finishing that. My best option is the following: put the phone somewhere else. And that seems really easy. Uh, but it's not. It's not, because it's like losing an appendage. If if you're that closely connected to your phone and the dopamine rushes it gives you, it's hard to put that thing down. But I've started recently, maybe the last couple months, really since I started the Dad Season show, and I've tried to like practice what I preach a little bit. Uh, I've taken the phone and I've put it in the bedroom. I put it like in the sunroom. We have a little sunroom there. I don't go very often. I just go, I charge it, and I just let it sit there. And yeah, there are times where I'll pat my pocket and be like, where is it? Where's my arm? Somebody cut my arm off and I need it. I need it bad. And then other times I will forget about it. And if you're away from the phone, I think long enough, then you kind of get used to the sensation of not feeling the need to reach down and check the phone over and over and over again. And yeah, I mean, sometimes I get a little like rush of FOMO, a little panicky when I come back and I see I've missed 3 phone calls and have like 30 or 40 text messages from people. That freaks me out a little bit, where I'm like, oh my God, like, did I miss something like tragic work wise or family wise? Like, are my parents okay? That sort of thought does come to mind, but I I'm okay. I'm okay just leaving it in another room. That's my one weird trick. If you wanted to know, the title of this podcast, One Weird Trick to Achieve Work-Life Balance, just get rid of the phone. Just get rid of it. It's so harmful to any sort of balance that you might be able to achieve. And for a lot of us, especially if you're working from home every day, it's not really possible to strike that balance exactly as you'd want. Just because of the physical closeness of work and home, being, I don't know, working from home. It's hard to separate. It is really hard to separate. But one way that you can immediately, I think, make a difference is to set the phone aside and say, I'm done with that for now. I'm going to focus on just being. It doesn't have to necessarily, you don't have to be playing a board game with the kids. You don't have to be outside throwing the ball or having like a deep conversation with your partner or whatever. It's nice. It's nice just to be without the phone. You might end up doing something crazy like reading. Who knows? All right, let's go to the comments. We have a comment here. It says Denny is yelling at the clouds hard today. I am. It hasn't been a phone in 15 years. Yeah, that's the thing. It's not a phone. It's just a distraction machine that will never stop, never ceases to distract. Diego is in the comments. Whew. I'm hot, guys. I'm hot. I'm sweating. Diego says, I sometimes cram too much work into the last few hours of the workday and end up working past 5. It's one way I can actually improve my work-life balance. Maybe say a little more about that, Diego. I'm a little bit lost there, but I think what you're saying is you can get the balance on the front end, and or not as much work on the front end, and so that you can have more of a life on the front end, and then you can work a little later than usual or a little later than you're supposed to still get your work done. My best bosses over the years have basically told me, like, you can, like, just get your work done. And they haven't been very strict about a time period in which to work. That has helped me a lot. And not everybody's the same. And maybe you need to be told to work a certain from a certain hour to a certain hour. But I've always liked that arrangement. And my first job out of college, I worked at a newspaper called the Gazette, and a lot of mornings I would get there. We were told that we had to be there by 10, which is insanely late, but we had to be there by 10, and I liked to come in at like 8:30 or 9 and knock out some work and then be able to leave a little bit early so that I could go like hit some range balls or like go take a nap before I went to cover a college park council meeting or some things of that nature. So if you have that sort of like self-direction, I think that can work for you. But if you are a boss yourself, if you're in charge of folks at work, consider not like demanding that they work from a certain time to another time. The worst boss I ever had used to constantly scream about butts and seats. We need butts and seats. Which, it's just a horrible plan for a bunch of reporters, right? You don't want your reporters butts in a seat. You want them out. You want them out doing stuff. We want butts and seats. Okay, relax. You're a horrible boss. I'm sorry. I'm sorry that you don't understand it, but yeah. DA goes back in the chat, says, I have trouble being productive early. I'm a procrastinator. Yes, I'm commenting on a YouTube stream. You're exactly. I'm sorry that I'm contributing to that procrastination. I am a procrastinator as well. But when it comes down to it, I do like to sort of be up against it. I like to be up against the clock to say, okay, like let's do this. I need to do this right now. It's a good little motivator. I wanted to read a little more from the 96 Ways to Rise and Grind, which you can obviously buy for yourself on the internet. From the forward, I wrote, I love quoting myself. It makes you feel important. The wholesale replacement of shining with grinding is equal parts telling, inevitable, and in my considered estimation, worrisome. Rise and shine surely means different things to different people, but to me, the phrase implies something overtly and unashamedly positive, something cheery and uplifting. My mom, when she woke me up for school from my dead adolescent sleep, would declare that it was time to rise and shine. She would rub my back with the sort of tenderness that can't be mimicked. I still, as a 30-something married father of two, miss that wonderful awakening. I guess I always will. I still do. There's a carefree element to rising and shining. To rise and shine is to simply be, not to force anything, not to make anything happen. Rise and be yourself. Rise and do what needs to be done, but also do what you would like to do. If you're alive in a developed post-industrial society, you likely have to do some amount of grinding to maintain a roof over your head and food in your belly. Grinding undoubtedly has its place to ensure your survival. Whether that's right or wrong, I don't know. But it's only one of these two things, shining, not grinding, that brings to mind my son Sesame Street books full of idyllic scenes in which people and furry monsters work, but also do what they want to do. What conjures joy? They paint and they sing, they play games and they dance, they laugh and talk about nothing of import. In short, they shine. Shining has a communal element. You're not shining just for you, but for those around you, family, friends, and strangers alike. Something that shines is radiant and bright. It reaches out beyond itself. To shine is to obliterate darkness. I'm a cynical person, so I have no illusions that darkness can be repelled forever. It can't. Whether you think darkness is the end of your existence or simply a transition to some other level of existence is up to you. Shining, it seems, is the way to hold back that darkness, if just a little bit. Life is a short, warm moment, as Pink Floyd said. Shining makes it so. Yeah, I snuck in a Pink Floyd lyric in there. And I think it's easy to lose sight of like just like getting up and just being, just like doing what you want to do. Maybe you go outside and like tend to some flowers. I'm not a flower guy personally, but folks like their flowers. They go outside and you tend to flowers. It's not work. You're just doing something you want to do. Go on a bike ride. Just something that you enjoy. It doesn't, not everything has to be work. And I do think that we have gotten to a point in the culture, at least I could just speak for American culture, where we feel like we're falling behind if we're not working all the time. You feel there's a guilt. There's an anxiety. Maybe there's even a terror, an underlying fear that you're falling way behind if you're not if you're not doing something, if you're not working at something, if you're not improving yourself in some way. And therefore, the self-improvement industry is so successful and so pervasive and just everywhere on my timeline. Everywhere. You even have the self-improvement people getting into replacing alcohol, with other things, with mushrooms, with with pot, with other substances, and they say, well, this will make it so that you can wake up in the morning and be productive. This will make it so that if by chance you want to stop grinding for 1 second, you can continue grinding right after the effects of our substance wear off. And yeah, so it truly is everywhere. I lost my train of thought completely. Dang it. All right, on to the comments. Yeah, Bob Harris says there's definitely terror, fear of falling behind. And there's a funny phrase. My buddy Pete Overzet, who was on an episode of Dad Season Show a couple months ago or last month, he jokes online about outworking people, or saying like I'm being outworked because someone is like grinding like UFL pass routes. That's me, by the way. I do that. And so but that fear of being outworked is very real. And because I mean, and that fear is there for a reason, and the reason is because you're afraid you're going to lose access to a roof and food if you get outworked. And isn't that freaking the most bleak thing you've ever heard in your life? It is for me. Man, if I don't work hard, I'm going to die. That's kind of what it comes down to. And so it's not surprising that the work-life balance is completely off for many parents, because that fear is a driver. Fear is very powerful. We know this. Fear makes you do things that you never thought you could do, including working constantly. And like I said earlier, doing that, working constantly, whether it's based on various motivations, fear, anxiety, a desire to be a capital G great person, okay? Like whatever it is, you're demonstrating this model to your children, because I promise you they're watching. And they're not taking literal notes, but they are taking mental notes. Okay, this is how mom does it. This is how dad does it. When they grow up, they're going to say, well, I know what I need to do in order to achieve things. And that is to never, ever stop working. And if you stop working, you are less of a person. Yeah. Yeah. When you link your self-worth to your work, it all falls apart. Because as soon as your work is criticized, or as soon as somebody else does something well that you've been trying to do, it's a shot to your ego. It's a shot to yourself, right? It's like an obliteration of yourself. Somebody outworked you. You are less than. And that can lead to a very dark place for people. I've been there. I've been there. Okay, like recently. It's easy to go there if your work, if you consider your work who you are as a person, I guess. That is a potentially very dark path. So just beware that. All right, folks. Well, we're going to wrap it up in just a second here. If you have any comments, throw them in here. Bandit is in the comments. He says, Denny's trying to shine with Ziggy to tell him to pipe down. I would like to tell that dog to pipe down. Bad boy. He's not a bad boy. He's not a bad boy. Index of Suspicion says, if you're looking for hours to do something, waking up earlier is great. That's right. That is right. Those of you who know, and actually I'm wearing a David Bowie t-shirt today, but those of you who know me know that I'm something of a Bowie expert. I've read, well, I'm looking at my bookshelf right now. It looks like 6 books on Bowie and his career and his life. And I remember in one of the books it talked about how waking up early was like a revelation to him, because the nightlife and the unbelievable amount of drugs that he was doing meant that he would go years without seeing the sun. This is according to him and his inner circle. Like he was a vampire. I don't know where this guy was getting his vitamin D. I guess he was just shoveling vitamin D supplements down his throat every day. I mean, that's the only thing I can figure. But yeah, so he slept through the day for years and years and years, and he got sober. I think he got sober a couple of times. He had some relapses, but one of the times he got sober, he started to wake up with the sunrise, and he said it was just like life changing. As someone who doesn't really get up that early, it has made me curious about maybe there's something to that. But the thing is, I don't want to have the bedtime of a baby, Like that's the thing about morning people. And by morning people, I'm talking about like people who get up really early, like 5 a.m., 5:30, whatever. The morning people, the thing they don't tell you is that they go to bed when babies go to bed. Like, I love getting stuff done. I wake up at 4:30 and I'm done with my work by 8:30 or 9, and I have the rest of the day. Yeah, okay, yeah, the rest of the day. You're exhausted, first of all, and it's not really the rest of the day. So, okay, yeah, you're done with your work at 9. Well, you're getting ready for bed. You're putting your little jammies on at 6:30 p.m. because you're exhausted because you got up at 4:30. There's a trade-off. That I don't like that trade-off, honestly. I mean, I'm fine splitting the difference and waking up at 7 and then going to bed at like 11:30 or 12. But this idea, yeah, man, morning people. Oh, a nice cup of coffee, and they love doing this. I know if you're listening to this, you can't see me. They love mimicking that they're holding a cup, okay, and nice warm cup of coffee in the morning. Oh, I love it. It's 4:30 in the morning, and I'm drinking my coffee, and it's so good. My Folgers taste so good, folks. My counter to that would be that I can have a cup of Folgers at 7 o'clock. You can also get coffee at 7 a.m. You can get it at 9. You can get it at noon. There's nothing special about a cup of coffee at 4:30. You're trying to shock your body out of sleep because your body's begging, please, for the love of God, go back to sleep. It's so early. It's dark outside. At certain times of the year, it's gonna be dark for another 3.5 hours. Your body's saying, well, what are you doing? Morning people, I gotta love them, gotta hand it to them. But man, oh man, the idea that there's no trade-off, the idea that like that's the way to go, I reject that. I reject it completely. Check your comments one more time, and then we will log off. Diego Lopez back in the chat. I understand the idea that humans must work in some form to produce resources for ourselves to live, but capitalism enables the stealing of the profits of our labor, which forces us to work more. That is, by the way, Diego Karl Marx Lopez in the chat. Thank you, Diego. Toronto Dave says, what's that slogan? What's that slogan again? Every day is great. Waking up with Folgers in my cup. Yeah, the millennial, the Zoomers don't know about that. I have actually gone on YouTube to watch old Folgers commercials. I'm a sick nostalgic freak. That's all I can say about that. Well, folks, listen. My one weird trick for trying to achieve work-life balance is just getting rid of your dang phone. You don't have to throw it in the ocean, but you can just toss it in your bedroom and be done for a while. Not all day, but for an hour or 2, 3 hours sometimes. Just get rid of it. Just go be yourself. Go enjoy your partner, enjoy your kids without your phone. Just the being physically separated from it, I think, is important. I think can be kind of a cheat code in trying to achieve that balance. That balance is so hard to strike. Anyway, like and subscribe. I appreciate everybody watching. Consider supporting the show on Patreon. Oh, I will put that in the chat actually, and so that you can check that if you like. And thanks again for joining me. I'll be back next Monday at 1 p.m. in the only legitimate time zone, the Eastern time zone, for episode 11 of the dad season show. Until then,